Hi, Janelle here with Sheep Hill Herbs. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my herb shop. This is my new home, my new place of residence for videos and classes and everything herbs. You can see my cabinet behind me. I'm just getting set up. So I am located in a cute little historic town, Rariersburg, Pennsylvania. And the building that I'm in is actually called the Kerr House, and it is on the Pennsylvania Historic Register, built about 1800, and has quite a history, including being a hat shop, a leather shop, a home, a place of voting, a rental property. And then the current owners, so I'm renting this, have restored it, totally restored it to the time period, I guess its original time period. And so that is why it's on the historic register, and it's just perfect for herbs and all things natural. So I'm really excited to be here and to be sharing video from this location. And tonight I'm doing a class on dandelions, and you can see the sign behind me. Taraxacum Officinale, the Latin name, and I'm going to talk all about dandelion and what kind of nice herbal medicine you can make and herbal food from dandelions. So just so you video people are aware, I'm going to probably be sitting and not looking at the camera that much during the class, so that I'll probably just move around. And sometimes I might even get up, but it's gonna roll and you'll hear the class. And please make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Check out the description down below. There's my link tree there, and my link tree takes you to everything that I promote and also offer. So let's get started with the video. Anyone want to switch places?
I can just sit next to
I'm
you.
fine, I'm out.
Do you want to be in?
I'll
Would it be
switch
better
places
if
with
you
a
sit
friend.
there, and would it just be on you in that spot?
A little.
A little far, but we can move this up then.
Amy was already in one of my videos.
Oh, okay.
I'll
There you go.
stare at my notes, pretend I'm looking at something else.
That's so interesting.
All right, so here we go.
Dandelion strengthens your liver.
I can say that.
Okay.
Yeah, you can say strengthens your liver. Yeah, we don't want to say healing or curing. Okay. So I did bring Dandelion Root Tea. Well, first of all, dandelion. Taraxacum Officinale, Latin name. I'm not good at Latin names of plants. Every plant person, like master plant person, herbalist, they always encourage you to learn Latin names. And in my course, I do have part of the homework to start learning the common name, and most plants have numerous common names, and then also the Latin name as well. I guess it makes you sound more official to know the Latin name. So dandelion, I debated, like, do I really want to talk about dandelion, because it seems like too common, and I'm like, everybody knows dandelion or about dandelions. But at the same time, it's just like so amazing of an herb, and I'm hoping there's things that I touch on that you don't know. It's so plentiful, like to ignore it would be silly. So that's dandelion. And I also thought I would have loved like all the dandelions to be like blooming right now, and to like bring a whole bunch. I found two yesterday. They wilted. But I thought, this is actually perfect, because I'm giving you this lesson now, and then as soon as they come up, you'll know what to do. So if we had done it when they were already in bloom, you might not have got around to like working with them. So now you're like going to be prepared. Dandelion root tea. Who drinks that or has had dandelion root? 1, 2, 3.
I've had that before. It's called something else. It's supposed to be like a coffee, like
Roasted
yeah,
dandelion.
maybe that's what
Dandy
it is.
blend?
Or dandy blend.
Yeah.
Dandy
Dandy
blend.
blend. Dandy
Yeah.
blend is really good.
Yeah. Had that.
Not, it does have a similar taste, but they put chicory in it. I know they sweeten it. I think I want to say there's barley in that too.
No, it's gluten free.
Is it gluten free? Okay. That's good to know. Do they put milk in it?
No, no.
I powdered milk. I don't know all the ingredients.
I know there's
I used to buy it.
stevia.
They must have changed the blend then.
Yeah,
I remember
'cause-
there was barley at one time because I'm gluten free.
Yeah, I know there's a whole bunch of coffee-like herbal things. Like Ticino is
Okay.
vegan, gluten free.
Yeah.
Because I like chicory.
Mm.
But yeah, I have the dandy blend up, but now I'm getting nervous and I feel the need to run home and check the back of the bag.
All right, so I don't have a teapot here yet. So what I did was, I hope you guys don't mind me pouring out of thermoses. And only a few, let's see, 6 lucky people get a teacup, and the rest have to have styrofoam. So I didn't bring all my cups over yet either. Maybe if I could pass the cups to you, Amy, can you put them on the table? And what is your name again?
You.
Benaya.
He doesn't like it.
I was gonna ask, can you pass the styrofoam cups? You don't want to try the tea?
You want to
Amy,
try it just in case?
Let's do
Okay. Yeah, he can
Doesn't say
drink it.
different.
All these.
maybe like half of, well, like 3/4 cup.
Because the one that I gave you was roasted, and then you don't like that. I like it because it tastes like coffee.
Just taste it. Once you drink it.
So I made this like an hour ago, and I have this like heat safe bag, so I'm hoping it's hot.
I'm actually drinking the other tea, maybe.
Oh, I'm gonna set this here.
Thank you.
Woo!
Mm.
We should give you a saucer since you don't have a table.
Like a tea.
Amy, we're getting styrofoam. You no tea?
So that's just dandelion. Is that all?
Okay. So this is dandelion root. It was not my root that I dried and cut. So I bought the roots, and to make tea from the roots, it's a little bit different than when you're just making tea with the leaves. Like if you were just using dandelion leaves or any kind of leaf, usually you can just boil the teapot and pour it over your dried leaf, cover, let it steep about 5 minutes, and it's ready. So because this is a root and it's more dense, more fibrous, hard, I filled up a pot. Well, I was making a lot, so I took a big pot on the stove, filled it more than halfway with water, and I'm not giving you measurements, but if you want measurements, it's for every cup of water that you would use, you put in a teaspoon of your herb. So I added the root and then simmered about 15 minutes. So it came to a boil, and I quickly turned it down and then allowed it to simmer. If I would let it soak overnight, and in fact I still have a lot, it's gonna look like coffee tomorrow. So I like to make my teas and make it extra and let them sit overnight, and then they get really dark, like beautiful colors, and then they have much more medicinal, nutritional value because the all of that came out of the plant into the water. Your plants will be like whatever you put in, like so the root will lose its color. If you were using flowers, if you were using leaves, they get so wilted and faded looking after everything has come into the water, and the water then is like this vibrant color. But this was only about 15-20 minutes. It's a little bit lighter. It is hot still. I do have honey if anyone feels like they want honey, but roots are usually sweeter because they have like a starchiness. It is really good with a little honey and milk. Anybody feel like they need honey? Very happy with it. All right, so I wanted to share. I love Rosemary Gladstar. I probably have said this to all of you, to most of you, where I'm always talking about her. I'd like to share what she shares about dandelions. So the cool thing about this plant is that all parts are edible. The root, the leaf, the flower. It's just like, before I go any further, I do want to say, I just like am so in love with this plant. And you know, in times where people, like when we're talking about like food issues or shortages, it's so it can be so plentiful, and it's just like so amazing to me that it like will come up to your house and just like fill in where you live. The two flowers that I picked were in like little cracks in the sidewalk. They'll grow anywhere, and they spread so easily. When we moved to the house, and sorry if you've heard this any of these stories before, but when we moved to where we live, it's been 10 years. I know they sprayed like so if you do that, sorry. They used weed killer on everything, the whole property. There were no dandelions. And then within like 1 year, I had all these dandelions. And my neighbor, she was like, aren't you going to spray? Aren't you going to get rid of your dandelions? Because they were creeping over to her yard and she didn't want them. And I'm like, no, I eat them. Now in the spring, like we have, like it's just like a field of dandelion. And it's just so cool. And I can't collect enough. I mean, truly, like going outside and knowing your plants, like there's just so much. You can't even collect as like enough. Like, or you don't even have the time, I mean, to like collect everything. So, dandelion. Vitamins A, B, C, and D. It's a good source of potassium, calcium, iron, and some other words that I don't know if I should say because you might not know. Maybe our nurse can tell us. Sesquiterpenes.
Nope.
Sesquiterpenes.
Is that like essential oil factors?
Yeah, that's the sorry, I'm weird. Sesquiterpenes, and terpenes are usually, like if you pick up certain plants when you're just walking around and you see little bumps and they're like fluid filled, like blisters.
Oh, okay.
That's the plant's bug spray.
Okay.
Why they don't eat. So,
thank you so much.
How do you spell that?
SE. You have the book in front of you. It's probably better.
Maybe okay. SES quit QUITERPENES. And then maybe you can tell us this to carotenoids.
Yes, that's the oranginess.
Okay, that's what I was thinking because that's in carrots.
That's and like
And pumpkin.
any kind of orange based things, and then like that's when they probably start throwing in bioflavonoids and the cyana. I just lost the name, but it's cyana. That's the blue, like blueberries, grapes.
Okay.
The more purpley blue grapes and stuff. But yeah, the sesquiterpenes or terpenes, it depends. Like for CBD, they just usually say terpenes.
Okay.
But it's their bug spray. It's their protection against invaders.
Yeah.
So like with the pine trees and stuff, the pinene or lemon, citrus, limonene
yeah.
stuff. So
Okay, great. All right, so just going into more of what she says here. So dandelion, does anyone know what that name means? So it means tooth of the lion.
Oh, that's
And that's because of the leaf, that little spiky leaf it has, which makes it very easy to identify in the spring. Does everyone feel like they can identify a dandelion without the flower?
right.
So a lot of plants, though, are hard until you see the flower. Anybody eat dandelion green salads? I do. I brought a whole bunch of greens. I'll probably let you try one, but they're better with.
Which part do you put in the salad?
Do you look behind you? There you go.
Oh,
I
okay.
feel like it's very like Pennsylvania Dutch. They have recipes.
Is
for
it
that.
Pennsylvania Dutch?
Well,
I
they
thought it was
always do with
Italian.
the bacon.
Bacon dressing.
Yeah, the
Oh,
hot bacon.
well, they
dressing.
My mom, well, her dad was Polish, and he made them dandelion salads, and he would do oil and vinegar with the dandelion. But with hot bacon, yeah, that would be good. I use maple syrup on mine, actually, because they are bitter. Like, I'll make my dressing and add a little bit of maple syrup.
My friend is she's studying master herbalism through the American College of Health Sciences, and
Yeah.
she's from down around like Birdsboro, Albany and stuff, and she just every once in a while on Facebook you see like just pictures of leaves or plants popping up, but she just like 2 weeks ago she said about dandelions and you know how people it is Pennsylvania Dutch, they're with the spring they're trying to get to the bitters and to cleanse, but nobody really knows why they do it. It's just kind of tradition now, but that's the,
Yeah.
I know for me being part of Pennsylvania German, it was always just the iceberg lettuce and bacon dressing.
Yeah.
What did you say the honey was?
What?
What did you say the honey was?
Honey.
Did I say?
She wants the honey for her tea.
Oh,
Is this the honey that you were talking about?
no. That one's empty.
But I is saying that he wants to try it.
Okay.
I don't want
You have to open it.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to squeeze back here for a spoon. Oh, that was easy.
Yeah, it was. Thank you.
Okay. So, all right. If you were picking them to eat, now I picked them to eat in a salad after the flowers have come on the plant, then they're much more bitter. But I don't really mind bitters. Right now is like the best time to gather your greens for salad because they are not as bitter, but still very nutritious. In fact, once any plant flowers, most of the energy is now going to the flower versus the leaf. In the fall, when the flowers tops have died and they have gone to seed, then the energy goes back to the root. So spring, good time for the root, good time for the leaf. As far as benefits, it is a classic liver tonic and blood purifier with a stimulating and decongesting effect on the liver. So it's like the perfect timing, right outside of winter, this plant comes up, and the best food to start eating to cleanse your body from the winter. They have a rich supply of bitter compounds that have stimulated receptor sites on the tongue. So a lot of herbs have these bitter qualities. And most people, when you're used to like sweet or salty, don't want to taste bitter. And you'll find lots of herbs in capsules, and I take herbs encapsulated, but really, if you can eat them and get that taste on your tongue, because you're immediately stimulating your digestion. So liver, gallbladder, the digestive tract. That's like one of the best things I feel like you can do with kids is get them used to bitter. I mean, really, because when they're older, then they're like, it's really hard to get them to change their taste buds on, bitter foods. Anybody give dandelions to their kids?
Not yet.
With the bacon dressing.
Just tea, the tea.
Okay. All right, so by stimulating bile with that bitter on your tongue, that helps your body break down cholesterol and fat. Okay. Dandelion leaf, so in Rosemary's book, she goes on to say that it's been used as a mild diuretic for the bladder and kidneys. Much of the SAD diet, the standard American diet, Western diet, stresses kidneys a lot, majorly. Our kidneys and the tubes, which you probably know, are very sensitive. They're like very thin. It's not like the intestinal tract, which has much thicker walls. They're very, very sensitive little tubes. And sugars and fried foods and, all of the processed foods really stress those organs. So dandelions, fresh dandelion leaf, this is all really good, like toning the body, strengthening the body. The leaf is also very strong in trace minerals. Throughout Europe and the Mediterranean, they are steamed. So instead of raw, just steaming them, serving with olive oil and lemon juice, and chunks of feta cheese if you want. Sounds good. Okay. All right, so I wanted to do some of my own demos about dandelions and how I work with them and use them. And so I quickly went outside. I'll have to keep going behind you guys. I quickly went out to my garden, and they're growing really well in my garden right now. And I just got a trowel, and I dug into the garden. I wanted to let them be muddy. I wanted to show you how I work with them, because it's a mess, like when you first get them out. Unless you're just pinching. Even if you pinch, they're usually pretty muddy. But the root, like this root got... So, okay, let me start over. Dandelions are so plentiful. I can dig up a lot, and there's still going to be a ton of them. I don't dig all my plants up by the root. But with dandelions, I often do. Like, they just keep coming up and keep coming up. And if you do not get the entire root, which I didn't for this one, it's going to come up. It's going to keep coming back. So I went out with the trowel and I just dug down. It's best to get while the ground is like soft and squishy, really easy to get them up. This one, almost all, that might have been like the whole root. That one's pretty long. But when you have your herbs going deep into the ground, like alfalfa goes really, really deep. It has a much to benefit the body nutrient-wise. And that's because the roots go really deep. But this is good here. So I dig them up. And then what I'm going to do is just rinse it in the sink, get off all the dirt. And then I'll pinch off my leaves and make them for a salad. And then the root, and I'm going to demonstrate this. The root I'm going to have cleaned. I'll like scrub it with my hand. If you buy like a new kind of like you have to be careful, like a sponge or something. You don't want any kind of like sponge that has like cleaning stuff on it. But some kitchen, I don't know what, I don't ever do this. I use my hand. But I think, or a toothbrush. I think my one friend uses a toothbrush. If you get like something like that, you can like scrub it better. So let me just pop behind you. I'll let you guys taste a leaf if you want. So you just super easy. It might take a while to get all the dirt off. But you're just rinsing, and they still will look brown. I'm gonna hand some to you. Can you just put them on the? Oh yeah.
She's not in the screen. You're not in the screen. Do you want to be in the screen? Do you want me to turn this?
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
There you go.
All right, so I'm just rinsing off this dirt. Whoops. It'll make a mess in your house. Has anyone ever dried root? Root? You need to get a lot of roots to have a good amount of, like I usually buy a pound of dandelion root because I like it, I drink a lot of it. They really shrink when you cut and dry them. But I'll dig up enough for like a week and then I'll have like my own fresh dandelion root. But I never like harvest enough to really give to other people. So, alright, I'm gonna just do one more. Now, I don't know, and I was wondering if anyone knows this. When you go to the store, they'll have dandelion, and I don't know why they're so big. Where those leaves come from.
Probably glyphosate.
What?
Probably glyphosate.
I feel like there's like a cultivated dandelion.
Okay.
The farm over there on Airport Road
Yeah.
would grow it, and it was taller, and it looked a little bit different too.
Okay.
And I think it was Italian. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because the ones you pick, the leaf, like, I mean, if you've seen them at the store, they're like so much bigger.
Yeah.
And they're not as bitter either, I don't think. Alright. So, anybody want to try a leaf?
I'm good.
Sure. Yeah. It's much better with salad dressing, but pass it around.
Try one.
Smoothies and stuff.
Do they?
Uh-oh.
I never put them in a smoothie.
It's not that bad.
Bitter. Taking tea.
But if you put banana in it, do you want to try dandelion leaf? I'm just giving this bunch here. Did I give you one? Yeah. Okay.
I started at the top down on the leaf, and the closer I got to the base, it got more bitter.
Did it?
Yeah. Just a little bit of a difference.
Hmm.
Mhm.
They're good right now. They're not too bitter. I like to use like balsamic or a little bit of maple syrup with apple cider vinegar when I mix it. So I'll probably use the rest.
So you eat the greens with the salad and then you boil the roots and make tea.
So then in that little middle drawer are a couple knives. Can you give me a little one?
This one?
Yeah. Oh. Isn't there a little like
Yeah.
I actually like to make dandelion salad at breakfast. So like we'll eat it with eggs or something. So I just like cut the root and then I just make is that more than a half inch chunks? And then it probably will shrink at least 50% smaller from that. And when I dry my dandelions. So I dry a bunch of different ways. Do you want to get me a paper towel? Sure. Sometimes I put herbs in a paper bag to dry. But when I do my dandelion root, I actually just lay them down on a paper towel and I'll let them at like a windowsill or like my counter by the window and just let it dry. It doesn't take that long. Maybe like, I want to say a few days until they're dry. You can also wipe them off with the paper towel before you dry because you can see I'm still getting dirt.
Mm-hmm.
You could use a dehydrator. Yeah, definitely. It's time consuming, but I feel like it's worth it. Sometimes the herbs that I collect, like I'll just save for the winter to have like a special like taste of summer or spring from my own, you know, my own yard, because a lot of the herbs that, well, unless you're ordering from a company that has like, they're growing all their own, like I know that some of the dandelion root that I was purchasing, it was like locations overseas that they're growing and collecting. And I like to get my herbs closer to home just because that's like a lot of steps, you know, it loses something with all that shipping and travel and everything. So making or cutting and drying your own is like great at home. All right. Then you want, actually, if you want to try like a piece of the root, you can do that too. I'm gonna just put that there for now. Maybe later.
Can you make tea out of it when it's fresh, or do you have to let it dry first?
You can, that's a good question. You can make tea while it's fresh. You don't have to wait for it to dry. Okay.
You just try.
So, what was it, a teaspoon to a cup?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Teaspoon of herb, whether it's root or leaf, I usually use a teaspoon. That's like the standard measurement.
Right.
So I wanted to show you.
There's more.
I wish I could demonstrate this.
I'd let my lift do it. Talk me into it.
I wish I could demonstrate this with actual dandelion flowers, but because there aren't any right now, I'm going to use lavender petals just to show you how to do this. But when you pick your own dandelions, you can use the dandelion instead of the lavender. So I want to make or show you how to make an Oxymel. It's called Oxymel, and it's a very old, like I want to say thousands of years old way of preserving herbs. I think they've uncovered like Oxymels from Egypt or something, like preserved, where that's like everything was preserved in those pyramids. And it's herbs with honey and vinegar. And every spring I make a bunch of these. I've made lilac flower Oxymel. I always make dandelion. Trying to think what I usually do. Violet. So I don't do it with leaves. I like to use flower. You could do it with the leaf, but the flower adds like this, you know, extra special sweetness. And when you make them, now I've done this with, honeysuckle. I've made it with honeysuckle before. It's best to wilt your flowers so you're not fully drying your flowers. If you pick a whole bunch of dandelion and put them on a paper towel or a towel in your kitchen and let them sit for even a few hours, then some of the water that will evaporate and they'll be slightly wilted. You don't want to use them fresh because I found like the honey does not do well with water. Now vinegar has water content, but too much water, it can spoil. So you want to wilt your flowers or use totally dried flowers. And I brought this honey jar over because it was almost empty, and sometimes I just make something like a dressing if my honey jar is like almost empty, instead of like wasting it or cleaning it out. Okay. So what you want to do, whatever flower you're using, even if it's dry wilted, it will swell. A totally dried flower will swell more than just a wilted one. But when I'm making a tincture, I usually go under halfway with the flower because it's surprising how much it will fill up the space. So I'm going to put, these are totally dry, so I'm going to maybe do, let's see, 1, 2, 3, like a third of the jar with the with the petals. If I were using wilted dandelion, I would go just under half of the jar with the dandelion flowers. And dandelion is not as fragrant, but it does give an interesting flavor.
When you're doing the dandelion, do you have to, do you put the whole flower there?
I just would pick off, like I wouldn't use the stem. I would pop off the flower.
Okay.
And they do shrink, they shrink down a lot. So I would be putting, so we're pretending this is the dandelion. I would be putting the dandelion flowers in the jar instead of lavender, but there are no flowers yet.
I can smell that lavender.
So that's all I'm going to use for lavender, because lavender is really fragrant. Okay. And then it's pretty much half and half vinegar and honey. So 50% vinegar, 50% honey. And a lot of, well, I guess you can be very scientific in measurement, just like with cooking, or not scientific, exact. Rosemary Gladstar calls it the simplers method, where you're like, give approximate measurements. That's what I do. That looks, so you're filling the jar about halfway with vinegar. And can I have the honey? Thanks.
That honey is really good.
Is it?
Yeah, it tastes good.
I found this at Brewbaker's, and I usually like to buy local, but I thought this looks really good. And it was in a jar because they had all this honey that was in plastic, and olive oil now. It's like so much olive oil is in plastic. I would refuse. Why is that? So you can set this on your counter in the sun. All right, that's gonna be it. Hopefully this lid doesn't leak. You want to mix it. I don't mix it. A lot of your herbal formulas you don't want to mix with metal. Something happens. Like
Vinegar,
the vinegar takes.
like the acid eats the metal, because I made that mistake when I would do the like the dried grapefruit peels to make like stovetop scrubber and stuff.
Okay.
And I'd come back like a couple weeks after it was like stuffed in the cabinet, and the lid would be eaten away. Yes, I think I read I wasn't supposed to do that.
Yeah, so like if you were making sourdough or something, you use a wooden spoon. If I'm stirring, now sometimes I do use a metal spoon, but try not to. Try to just stick with the wooden. But you can just shake it up. And then leave this on your windowsill. I don't leave this like in the sun as long as I would a regular tincture. Like if I'm calling a tincture like an extract that you use a liquid like vinegar, alcohol, vegetable glycerin. If I was making an extract with just vinegar, I would leave it for 2 weeks. But 1 week is good.
For the dandelions.
Yeah. There's something like when you're making your herbal remedy or your herbal food, you can put it in the sun. But once you strain off the herbs, it now will get destroyed by the sun. So you can no longer leave your prepared herbal concoction in a sunny place. It now has to go in a cabinet and be out in the sun. So this is really sticky. I might have to get a wooden spoon and stir that. If I were using the dandelions, I would probably leave them in. These are really little. I've never made it with lavender flower. That could be interesting in a salad. It might be hard to strain that off. I have to think about that. But I usually leave the dandelion flowers in, and what I do then is use that for my salads. So now you have the vinegar and the honey, and you just add olive oil, salt, and pepper. You could just take a spoonful of the Oxymel, and that I think was the original intention, to get this like medicinal kind of formula. Or, you know, a lot of Oxymels were made with multiple herbs, and then that would be like kind of like a syrup, but they were not as syrupy because of the 50% vinegar that you're using. I just use it for salads, and then like I feel like my family gets the benefit because it's in our salads.
Mm-hmm.
And
if you were just gonna take it like a tablespoon a day or something.
You could do that, or I like pour it in little cups. If you wanted to do like a liver tonic kind of cleanse, I would say do that. Take a little cup of it, probably a tablespoon a day versus a teaspoon.
Yeah.
If you're using it in your salad, drink your salad dressing at the bottom of the bowl, because you won't get that much if you're just eating the leaves. But that's how you do an Oxymel, and there's plenty of time now to be prepared. And as your flowers come up, you can do this with all edible flowers. Yeah, and usually the vinegars turn like a really pretty color. So it would be like more orangey with the dandelion, or the violet had like a purple color. So it's really cool. I'm going to just press pause into, I would love to like do some plant dying stuff. Yes. Did you move? No. Should I turn it back
But
on?
you're in the picture.
I can still see you in there.
I can.
Did you guys want me to turn it back off? Should I turn it back off?
Okay.
I was gonna ask about the lid. Did you say that you could use the metal lid with this?
Oh, you know what? I did want to say something about that. So let me look at this one. Yeah, this is a nice coating, but because of this metal here, I often take wax paper and fold wax paper like 2 times and put it between the lid and the jar, unless you have a lid that's like totally like coated on the top. But for this one, I would put some wax paper. Good point. Anybody make dandelion wine?
You could do that?
Yeah, I did it once.
Someone's interest back here.
Where's the,
No idea.
where's the taste testing for that?
I wish I had that right.
Dad's, it was actually my grandfather's
We'll have
friend.
to do it in a couple months. Make it
Mhm.
this spring and come back.
He used to do that. He was from Cressona, and he used, everybody was always like, and they actually used for my parents' churches, the communion. He passed away in like 2013, but they used Al's wine for communion, but that's what he always did. He was like, Al's dandelion wine, and I can't stand the smell of wine, so.
I just ordered the wine yeast today. I'm planning on making some.
Oh, with what? Dandelion?
Dandelions, they say you need wine yeast to put into it. Yeah, I just ordered that on Amazon.
I think I used champagne yeast,
Okay.
and I had to. Well, the recipe I used, you had to add raisins.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's not much sugar in the flowers. So it was the flowers and raisins, and then I don't remember what else. But I did it one time when I lived in Newmanstown. But I was thinking about it again.
And it has to sit for a long time, doesn't it? Like after it ferments, you bottle it. Do you have to let it sit for a while, or no?
A few months.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that long?
Yeah. Too long.
I just remembered. I think I made Dandelion Beer too, and
Wow.
that you didn't have to sit. That was like 20 years ago. I think we saved old beer bottles that were screw top, and I made a tea. That was easier, a lot easier. And I don't like beer, but it had no like grains in it. So we made this like big pot of tea, and again, I think there was like something sweet beside, like maybe a fruit was in there, but like I remember cloves or some cinnamon or something like that. Made this like delicious smelling tea, and then put it in the beer bottles, probably with the yeast. I forget how, but I remember I was like in college or something. I had it in this like little fridge. But that was easier, and you didn't have to wait long.
That's good.
So I wanted to do a little bit more. Anybody want to talk? Should I turn it off? Do you want to turn it off?
Oh, that was on. I didn't know.
If you have
let's
more
go back.
if you have, not important, if you have more, you know.
There, you're not in it
In
now.
the video?
but you can come back. Let me see if I can get some. I like this book. It's Native American Medicinal Plants. I often like to share what the old purposes were for the plants, because I guess it feels like it's more, there's more authority there when you know, like, oh, people or these people use this plant for hundreds of years for this purpose. If I can find
That
it.
book reminded me, there's a website called freebooksy.com, and it's through, you can get like Kindle or Nook, whatever you use, but
Yeah.
just the other month I got this, and lately, you know, the gardening ones are coming through, and I don't know how good a lot of them are, because, you know, you see the real price is like $2.99 or something, but I got it,
There we go.
a Native American, actually I might be able to find it. It was a whole series of Native American medicine. It was actually before the first class I came to.
Oh,
I
okay.
downloaded it, but it's usually, and you can sign up, you know, if you want like the fantasy paranormal books or something, but I get a lot of the recipe and like herby stuff, because I figure maybe there's a nugget of information that I'll
Yeah.
remember and not kill my plants.
Well, let me know if you find it. But okay, so this is, if you want to write this book down, it's Native American Medicinal Plants, an Ethnobotanical Dictionary.
I have that.
Do you have this?
I have the big one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So like this
Big
book
version.
is super easy. It's like, I would say, very beginner, beautiful pictures. Like, I love this book. This book is
Deep.
it's like, it's heavy.
Yeah, right.
I can only read a little bit of it at a time. But let's see what's in here. I never read about dandelion in here. So, Dermatological Aid, the Aleut, A-L-E-U-T, used it as a poultice or steamed the leaves and applied to ulcers. A gastrointestinal aid, a poultice of steamed or wilted leaves applied to stomach aches, so externally. A throat aid, a poultice of steamed or wilted leaves applied for sore throat. I won't read all the Indian things here. I mean, all the different tribes, but I'll just pick a couple. The Algonquin in Quebec, it says here, blood medicine greens, eaten to purify the blood. Poultice leaves used for plasters. Everybody know when I say poultice what that means?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's two things when you're applying, well, there's more than two, but there's poultice and fomentation, and of course you can put an oil or a salve on your skin topically. A poultice is when you actually take the plant and you're putting the plant like directly on your skin.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's usually warm, not too hot. So I do this with like plants that have big leaves, like mullein, comfrey, maybe lamb's ear. They use dandelion leaves. So you're steaming or boiling them, lightly boiling in a pot, and you're taking the leaves and making sure that they're like warm to touch but not too hot, and you apply it to the skin area, so whether the throat, the stomach, and then usually you cover with like a cotton cloth or some other kind of wrap, so to keep the heat in. Now I don't know what they would have used, maybe leather wraps. I actually even sometimes use saran wrap, so because that really keeps the heat in. So say you were putting something on your arm, you put the leaves, you wrap with saran wrap, and then like a towel. So that really keeps like the heat in, and your skin is porous and like a sponge. It just soaks in that medicine from the plant. So that is a poultice. Now fomentation is very similar, but you're not putting the plant directly on your skin. You're making a big pot of tea. So let's say you're making the dandelion tea, and you dip a clean cloth in the tea and squeeze it, and now you're applying that cloth that has been soaked in the tea to your skin, and again being careful that it's not too hot, and then you can wrap it in like another towel, like a dry towel or something, just because you want to keep the heat in, the moist heat. So poultice plant, maybe remember P, poultice plant goes right on, and then the other one is called fomentation. Maybe I'll do two more here. The Delaware and Oklahoma Indians used it as a laxative and tonic plant, and it doesn't say what part specifically. I don't know what part they use. Let me see if I can, here's a longer description. Some of the descriptions are, I guess, like the information they had about how the tribes used these plants was very limited. The Iroquois used dandelion as an analgesic, which is pain killing. The compound decoction of dried plants taken for pain. Compound infusion of roots and bark taken for back pain. Infusion of flowers, roots, and roots from other plants taken for lower back pain. And then it says blood medicine, so this is still the Iroquois. Decoction of plants taken for anemia. The Iroquois, dermatological aid, compound infusion of plants and roots taken and used as a wash for liver spots. So I may have said a bunch of words that you're like, what are all these words? That's why this book is kind of like more in depth, because you have to know what's a compound decoction, what's a compound infusion. You have to know like what what are those things so that you can understand how they did it. But there's like a lot of information on how the Iroquois applied dandelion medicinally, and there just must have been more recorded information from them. Here's another one. The Mohegan, they used it as a tonic. So tonic, anybody know tonic, what that means? Tonic is something that can be taken daily. So tonic is nutritional usually in nature, and I'm trying to think of something I could relate it to today. I don't know, maybe like orange juice or something, like a daily tonic of like
A shot of apple cider vinegar.
yeah, or like
Honey or something.
something like tonically every day you take your apple cider vinegar and honey, or like you know, maybe freshly squeezed orange juice or something. So tonically they would make dandelion and white daisy wine for daily use. But I would wonder how much was that tonic, like how much they would drink. Anyway, so super cool book. And oh, what do you have here? Then
Apparently there's 5,777 pages,
so this is just downloaded.
so.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I've
Did
gotten,
you look up the book online, like if you bought the set?
I could, I could see how much it is.
I hate reading.
But that's all Native American. That's
Yeah,
mostly
as
Native
far as I
American.
know, I didn't